Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan.
I'm Anna.
And we are here to talk today about how we can love God and use tech. And today is a super special episode because it's episode 100, which is nuts. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around 100 episodes at one a week.
That's a lot.
Putting us like 2 years into this process. So today our goal is we're going to celebrate a little of what God has done. We're going to talk about what it looks like to have gospel-centered tech. And then we're going to run through some of the top tidbits over the last 100 episodes, and I guess do kind of like a meta review of kind of where we have grown personally in this process, because we don't know it all and we didn't start with knowing it all, and just kind of what we hope families can take away from this podcast and from these resources that we've been blessed to be able to make over the last couple of years. So with that, let's get the conversation started. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast, a resource for parents who are feeling outpaced and overwhelmed as they raise children in a tech world. As an educator, parent, and tech user, I want to equip parents with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to raise kids who love God and use tech. Thank you to everyone who has made this podcast possible. If you have listened, subscribed, if you follow us on social media at Love God Use Tech, thank you so much. And thank you to our year-end donors who were super generous and are helping this work continue, because we are donor-supported. We're part of a nonprofit, and our work continues because people believe in it and financially support it and tell their friends, and we are so grateful. So thank you. And that's also how we got to episode 100.
Yes.
Holy moly. So I guess first, a little celebration of what God has done. I had an idea on how to show what God has done. It's like a weird thing to do on a podcast, but I guess I wanted to run through what we've made, I guess.
Can you see it, listener? Can you see it?
So let's just, I guess, run through, here's what, all right, let me take another step back. Let's start all the way at the beginning. We were both teaching, and then we had kids. Right?
It was really in the beginning.
In the beginning. And then it was just me teaching. And then there was this moment where we're like, hey, I felt called to start talking with young people and not just in the classroom. And you felt called to support me, I think is the way to say that. Is that right?
I think we can say that.
Yeah. And so we started a nonprofit called Flint and Iron. And I say we because while Nathan was the one talking, I was out there pounding the pavement. Anna was the one making my words make sense to normal humans, because I have lots of words, but not all of them are worthwhile. So Anna and I started this part-time teaching, speaking thing for 3 years. And then Hadley came along, and my brain was breaking from the stress of, I was also doing Young Life at the time. So those 3 ministries were too much. And we started.
We were going to try and sell our house, and we had many people
that was
say,
a thing too.
Don't sell your house right now.
We're like, yeah. By trying to sell, we actually were under contract.
No, this was a different time.
Okay.
It was just when we were pregnant with Hadley, but I have wanted to move for a long time, but several people were like, this is not the time. And they were right. It was not the time.
Thank you, those people. You were amazing. And then we started Flint. And I'm like, phew, we finally made it. We're full-time, out of the classroom. This is our gig.
I don't know if I thought we made it. We just did it.
Just we're there. It's terrifying. Teaching is the most consistent job you can have. I liked it, and I was relatively good at it. I guess it depends on who you would ask, but I at least felt like I was confident in my work. And then we started this job where it's speaking and podcasting is 10% of my job, and the rest of it is all these things I'm terrible at. And then, just because that seemed too easy, we started Gospel Tech and really felt called to.
And then there was a pandemic.
Yeah, right? So we had this fundraiser, and we're like, hey guys, we don't know what we're doing, but would you help us do this brand new thing? And people are like, yes. And then the world shut down. And then for the last 2 years, so that was 2020, and then for the last 2 years of Gospel Tech, we haven't really been able to do live talks or any of this stuff. And we've had to reimagine, what does it look like to even talk to people about technology, because we can't even get to those people. And
nobody wants to hear right now.
Right.
put your phone down because we're all just trying to not die.
Right. So people are like, oh, I totally get it. Like what you're saying makes sense for those other people out there. But like for me and my family, we're just trying to make it till Monday. And when the kids can go back to school, if your school is still open. So that is crazy. So in that process, what the Lord has done, well, we have a podcast and it hasn't died, despite our best efforts, which is incredible. We made an online workshop for small groups. So basically like a small group curriculum, which is awesome. There's like a workbook with it. It's like hardbound and I guess not hardbound, it's bound.
It looks like a real book.
Yeah.
It looks like better than what we could have made in our printer with our Microsoft Word.
Yes, like it was actually like printed by a binding company and like we had real artists and editors like work on it. So the Gospel Tech Workshop, you actually just go gospeltechworkshop.com. You'll see it. And it's online videos. It's a 2-hour online workshop with a handbook. Like that's crazy. And it's bound and rolling, which is amazing. We have a live parent workshop and a live youth workshop where we talk about like how do we handle tech? How do we know if it's healthy? What can we do if it's not? And in this process have been taught loads and loads of humility. I think that would be my takeaway.
A lot of humility, a lot of trusting the Lord.
Yeah, let's dig into that because I do feel like, especially if you follow us on social media, you know that social media is a horrible way to try to like have real life happen, right? Like it's all the shiny moments. And even if you try to post real stuff, people just don't care. Like they're like, whatever, I didn't want to see that. I came here for the shiny to feel terrible about myself. So let's dig in a little about like, what have we had to trust the Lord in for the last 100 episodes, 5 years?
Well, we fundraise for 100% of our income.
Boom.
So
let's start there.
Let's start with that. That, and not that I feel like our pastor, when we first did this, was very gracious to meet with us. And like the Lord is always in charge of our income. We just really felt like we were in charge of it when we worked regular jobs of like, I can make sure I get a paycheck. And this is like so humbling to have to ask people to donate. It's painful.
It's really painful.
But every year we've had a fundraiser, we meet or exceed our goal, and it's just felt ridiculous. Like it really has. Like I don't like you're gonna write us a check? Are you sure?
So here's the question: in the last 5 years, has there ever been a time where you've prayerfully thought that maybe this will be the year we don't raise enough funds?
Oh, for sure. Last year I thought like we're not gonna raise money. Like it's been such a weird year. We haven't had the contact with people that we normally do. But I think people were so happy to like be at a fundraiser and be...
Yeah, that was part of it for sure.
We have amazing donors. Like we really do. They're the best. They're so generous. People give on top of their giving to support this work. It's crazy. I really didn't think we would hit it. We lost Sean, like we had like
2 weeks before.
Yeah, like Nathan's had a great mentor from Young Life, our area director, and they moved out of state. And Sean had coached us kind of through every fundraiser and really done the legwork. And he had emceed it. And I feel like people in our community really trust Sean and know Sean. And I think I don't think it was a wrong assumption. I think we got a lot of credibility because we had our Sean there.
Yeah.
And people trust him. So they're happy, like a little bit of ethos to write a check to us. And then this year we brought in a new friend who is wonderful, but not as well known as Sean.
Yeah.
And we still exceeded our goal. And I was just like, oh, okay, we're still doing it.
You've ever been disappointed at God providing way more than you expected? That was us. And I say that because I feel like sometimes it can come off as like everything's always been awesome. It's always shiny. We absolutely know what's happening. And that's how you know the Lord is working. And that's not the point of what's happening right now. In fact, we have Jonah moments where we kick and scream and we're like, but it's not fair that we got called to this.
Yeah, I definitely identify with Jonah probably more than anybody else.
Yeah. And it's not a great person for us to identify with, but it's real. Right? Like we want to be Job and be like, of course the Lord is good and this all like, I'll never curse him because...
I'm not cursing the Lord.
Right.
Just...
But questioning hard and even actively running, like saying, I just don't want to do this, Lord. Like I know what you've told me to do and I don't want to. And the reason I'm bringing that up, guys, is because the Lord has been moving in this. And when we repent of this hard heart we're explaining right now, the Lord continues to give us the hope for that next step because it is overwhelming because we don't know where this ends, right? We don't know if we are on a 4-decade journey or a 4-year journey. Like, we don't know what it looks like. All we know is in this season, we've been called to be faithful with this message of, hey, let's help families. Let's help parents raise kids who love God and use tech. And that's the ministry we're currently in. And so when we celebrate what God's done, it has to be in light of like, this wasn't because Nathan and Anna had this beautiful dream 6 years ago and we've perfectly followed it to a T, and therefore the Lord is blessing us.
No, it's in spite of us.
There we go. That's what I was trying to get to. We have really been blessed in spite of our efforts, not because of them. And I think I just want to spend a moment and I guess look back on like, what has gospel tech become? And I think of it personally as this idea of gospel-centered tech, right? That we're working out from the gospel, and where that's, I guess, really impacted me as someone creating this content is I'm not just trying to make cute steps to fix people's kids. They're not problems to fix. They're people to love. I'm not trying to make, here's the top 3 ways to whatever, get that iPad out of your kid's hands or make the iPad acceptable or play just these games that are going to make your kid a super genius, but instead to go, all right, whatever you're doing, what does it look like to start first with the gospel? The truth that God loves you in spite of your sin, right, and calls you to a life of righteousness in Christ. So in light of that, then my talks are, they're more specific to, all right, how do we deal with hearts first and then actions? The podcasts that we make are more like big picture. And it's been very challenging for me because a lot of times you get this imposter syndrome of like, all right, I'm not doing this perfectly. Like, I'm not the guy with all the answers. It's just this heart that we've been given to see the gospel lived out, which has been encouraging and I hope has been helpful for you guys because it's been a journey for us for sure. What would you say like it's looked like the last couple of years?
I think we've had a lot of conversations about, like what you said, that it's not just these 3 steps. Like, I feel like it keeps coming to my mind when we're talking about stuff or working, like we have to look at the end game for our kids. It's not just what's going to get us through this hour. I feel like we have to have bigger conversations, and I don't know. I feel like it's hard to sit down and stop and have those conversations, like to do this workbook or to take time as a couple or a parent and say, like, what is our family vision? I know the Fredericks talk a lot about that.
Those Fredericks of Fierce Marriage, Fierce Families.
If you don't follow them or listen to their podcast, I feel like give them, you probably already do if you're listening to us, but they have great resources and a focus on like, what is our family mission, and kind of like step back from just the day to day. I feel like it's so easy to get just to be in like reaction mode and not to be purposeful. And not that you're not going to have moments where we're going to react and things are chaos, but I think to just have a united front of like, what is our goal for our family? What is our goal for our children as we raise our children? And then the decisions we make flow out of that. And everyone's on the same page and bought into like, well, we're trying to raise disciples of Jesus. That is what we're doing. Like, we want them to love the Lord and we want them to fulfill the purpose He's called for them. And then the things that we do as a family, and it's not just tech, I guess. Like, I think that is something we keep coming back to too. Also, is just tech is a part of it, but how many sports are they all playing, and who are their friends, and what are they doing with their free time, and what are we reading, and just any decision we make. Where are we traveling? Where are we spending our money? Everything comes back to this. If we have a purpose, then it makes those decisions easier if we know what we're doing for our end game.
Yeah, living on purpose, right? In all areas of our lives.
I always think of that I think that was in like one of those, this is a controversial parenting book.
Ooh,
it's not really. I feel like people are just very passionate about Baby Wise. But it was sleep training your baby, you know? And their whole thing was like, begin with the end in mind. Like, and I feel like that's a very similar mentality of like, okay, well, I'm going to do this for my baby right now because my end goal is for my kid to sleep in his room by himself and not be sleeping next to me forever. Right. Maybe that's not your end game. That's fine. That was my end game.
People with co-sleeping, their end game is.
Yes, that's totally fine. Our end game was to get this kid to sleep through the night. So we're going to do steps today that are going to get us there. And I feel like it's a similar thing of how we treat our tech. Like, if I want to launch disciples, functional adults. What do I do to get them there?
I love that, right? Because we're not trying to raise just well-mannered, well-adjusted youth. Like that's not our goal. Our goal is not just to keep our kids safe and happy, although those are all wonderful things.
I want them to be well-mannered also. I do.
But that's not just our goal. That's not the end game. There are ways to get well-mannered that overlook more important character issues of a kid who has integrity, because they're just going to be well-mannered. Right? You can raise a liar who's just very well-mannered, right? And now you've just equipped a wolf with all of these ways of hiding who they really are inside. And so I think that I love just that focus of, we're raising up disciples of Jesus. And it's been a huge journey and conversation. I thank you guys for being with us on it. And as we have this, so since Anna and I are making this content and living it out actively and then like sharing with you what the Lord's doing in us, if you have kind of sticking points or spots where you're running into questions, it's always amazing when you come and ask those either through Instagram or Facebook at Love God Use Tech, or just email me directly, Nathan at Love God Use Tech, because when we hear your perspectives, it's where we get to go, all right, like this, it's not a one-off answer. It fits everyone. Like there's these really unique wrinkles when it comes to technology and family and raising young people. And so please do share those out with us, because it helps us grow too. Which brings us to where we're headed. So 100 episodes in, we're not done yet, it turns out. This next year, we're actually focusing on, the talk we did at this last fundraiser was all about how do we extend this work? And we're doing it in 3 ways. One, we're teaming with like-minded organizations. So groups who have the similar mission of helping raise young people who are disciples of Christ and loving God in that process. So we are going to be writing with them, speaking with them, and helping more families hear about our content and use this and apply it in their lives. We're going to be teaming with like-minded schools and churches, giving live talks. Actually, I have a conversation with someone in like 20 minutes about flying potentially over to the East Coast of the United States and doing a couple talks out there, which is awesome. Heads up, you were invited. So we'll have to talk about what that might look like. Okay. We all find out at the same time.
It's great to just share live information.
And then our third is, all right, so like-minded organizations. To just improve the quality and maybe even the quantity of the content that families are already using. So keep the podcast up, social media, blogs and articles, and to continue supporting families in those ways. So that's where we're headed, and that's what you guys are supporting. So thank you for doing that. As we continue, do you have you look like you were on the cusp of a thought.
Great.
All right.
Yes.
Finally, we are going to look at 3 tech tidbits from the review of this last year, or I guess 2 years, of podcasting. So if we were to say, hey, here's 3 things we want every family to know who listens to any of our podcasts, number 1 would be, Anna?
No tech in the bedroom.
Which is not a popular one.
I know. It's once you do it, it's okay, but it's hard to make the transition. But I feel like, especially for kids.
Yeah. That's a nice,
like if you're gonna pull that, well, we're the parents, and so we get to have our phones in our room. You can deal with that in your house. Our kids aren't old enough to notice those double standards yet, so we haven't quite approached that. But we did remove our tech from our bedroom. We don't have a TV in our room, and we don't have our phones in our room. And we did for a long time, and
I actually went back and listened to episode 1.
I can't remember why we
episode 1.
Because it was like, we got to say this on the podcast, so we got to get our phones out of our bedroom. I think that's really why we did it, because we were just like, we can't be little liars on the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's been great. I feel like it kind of helps with some of those boundaries we put around just mental space of like able to fall asleep at night. It eliminates a lot of the mindless scrolling that happened, or like there's very few people. I can't think of anybody right now who needs to get a hold of us in the middle of the night.
And if they do,
they will knock on our door because they know we don't have our phones. And then I feel like if somebody is having an emergency, or like when we've had friends have babies and we're a phone call that needs to get made, like, great. Then I sleep with my phone next to me. We don't have a landline. So that's fine. Anyway, but especially for kids, then you can go back and listen to those podcasts. But there is no reason for kids to have. I just saw something yesterday that was like Kindle is really, like, if your kid's got a Kindle in their bedroom, that must have been on CNET yesterday too. They had a lot going on, but maybe it was Protect Young Eyes.
Probably
Ugh,
Protect Young
the
Eyes.
Kindle app.
Chris McKenna does a
If
great
you
job.
think that the Kindle app is safe for your kid, you just need to know they have internet access on that. And that I was just talking about there's a lot of ways to like secretly push porn through the Kindle. So just be aware of that. Like no tablets, no laptops. Like everything needs to be open door.
Yeah.
For a million reasons.
Yeah, which, I mean, protecting their sleep, protecting their distractibility, protecting their exposure to pornography and bullies, protecting their ability to stay asleep once they fall asleep. So on one side, they get overstimulated and they don't fall asleep. On the other side, they wake up thinking about things or wanting to play a game or wanting to reach out to friends. And all of that messes up a sleep cycle, which impacts all of the brains.
Yeah, mental health,
all,
anxiety, it's all connected.
So that's our first tidbit would be please take tech out of the bedroom, specifically drool tech or anything that can have access to drool tech that is entertainment. So if it can access social media, the internet, video games, play music, we want that thing out of the room. The second is we got to know how to assess tech health because a lot of times we go, all right, I perceive that there might be a problem, but we don't know, is tech actually the problem, right? Or is it something else and tech is just an outcome of it? So we call this a reset and we say, does tech impede or improve? Does it get in the way of or does it make better our relationships and responsibilities, our emotions, our sleep, our enjoyment, and our time?
Is that on the website, that document?
That document should be on the website. Now that you ask me, there's definitely an article on that.
Okay.
If you
We'll link that in our show notes.
In our show notes, because I totally know how to do that. Show notes are not an area I need to improve at. I do great at them all the time.
I like show notes.
Yeah,
on
they're
other
great.
podcasts. So we will try and leave that for you because that's
I'm going to make a note of that.
a helpful article. And it's a really quick, easy assessment to assess yourself. It's something you can do with your kids, have your kid do it for you. If you have an older kid and you feel like this is going to be a tricky conversation, let's all do it and all assess our health together.
Yeah, which is painful. And the fact that you don't want to do it means you need to because there's no way to establish these norms for our kids without actually doing it ourselves. Kids do not listen to people with two standards. It's just not the way it works. And God calls us
take that plank out of your eye.
Yeah, to do that ourselves. And then that leads us to our third and final, which is how in the world do we even get started in this process? And the first thing you do is you establish a safety network, a safety, I guess, boundary for
the hedge of protection.
The hedge of protection around your home network and your personal devices. So that will look like you need to have protection on your home internet. So if you have wireless internet or if you just have regular old-fashioned plug-in internet, you need to make sure that there is some form of accountability that is loving. Therefore, it's not only one person looking at whatever's being seen. There's always multiple people. So I strongly encourage the Griffin router.
Do you have a list of those things too? Can you put that somewhere, like the things you recommend?
Yeah, where you want to see it? In show notes or like an article on this?
I think something people could read would be helpful.
Okay,
I'm here for the people.
Be here for the people.
I'm in my car right now listening to this. I have no idea what these things, you're going to tell me all these things that I need to put on my devices.
All right, people. Basically, I'll write an article on
The
this.
Healthy Home is the place to start. Nathan will post something on the website.
Yep.
For you
and
to
the
find.
idea of what you're getting out of this is the ability to know what's happening on the internet and to establish some boundaries in love, not fear.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, I am not a very good auditory listener, and I'm probably doing something while I'm podcasting. So if somebody's going to give me instructions, I'm not. It's going to just
You better promise you're not walking around with AirPods in listening to this.
Don't even have AirPods. If you'd like to donate some AirPods to the cause,
Anna,
I will happily wear them, even though Nathan hates them.
I do pretty much loathe them. Only in situations where you're supposed to be like available to people.
I'm going to wear them all the time.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. All right. Well, everyone, that's our episode for today. But thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us, Nathan@gospeltech.net, or I think it's Anna@flintandiron.org. I don't think you have a Gospel Tech email. Do you?
Nope.
No. And she's really sad because she loves getting all the emails. So you can reach out either of those or at Love God Use Tech on Facebook or Instagram. And you can join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we love God and use tech.
Bye.